We have spent considerable time inside the number 4. We have learned its architecture, the cube, the container, the square aspect, the parental complex, the 4 elements in their state of equilibrium. 4 is the programmer's masterpiece of stability. It holds, it endures, it defines the boundary between what is inside the simulation and what lies beyond it. Now we step across that boundary. The number 5 does not belong inside the structure 4 built. It was never designed to. 5 is the first number that escapes the symmetry of the square, the first number that cannot be contained by the 4-sided logic of stable matter. Where 4 is controlled, measured, synchronized, and static, 5 is random energy, elastic, and constantly in motion. Where 4 says, "Here is the container," 5 says, "I refuse the container." The shape of numbers reflects their nature. Just as the 4 is square and grounded, the 5 is a symbol of dynamic motion. The pentagram, the 5-pointed star, the geometry of change itself. We enter strange territory here, the territory of freedom, the territory of choice, the territory where the avatar, having been built by 4's discipline and shaped by 4's consequence, must now decide what to do with what they have become. The pentagram is one of the most ancient symbols in human civilization. It appears in Mesopotamia, in Greece, in the great cathedrals of medieval Europe, burned into the landscape of Chartres, France, across several square miles of rugged terrain with an accuracy that baffles modern measurement. Its presence everywhere and in every age tells us that the simulation is trying to teach something through this shape, something it considers important enough to encode into the very geometry of the physical world. What is the pentagram teaching? Begin with the female body. It defines a region in space where it is possible to enter another dimension. Where the 2 legs of the star intersect, the womb that lies above and below the plane, the holy pixel that offers the possibility of entry into another dimension, the sensation of time standing still. The pentagram creates what we might call an elevator operator installed in the holy pixel. The ancient question that 5 always asks is simply this: going up or down? If we take the pentagram and allow the head point to move out of the plane, to lift upward, the flat star becomes a 3-dimensional structure. The 4 remaining points become the corners of a square base. The lifted point becomes the capstone. The pentagram has become a pyramid. The pyramid is the marriage of 3 and 4, spirit and matter. The triangular faces represent the creative principle of 3, always pointing upward, always reaching for the apex. The square base represents 4, the elements in their state of equilibrium, the container, the foundation in matter. The 5th point, the capstone, is neither the base nor any of the faces. It is something else entirely. The 5th point is called the ether. It is the passageway that exists above the 4 elements and through which the 4 elements are created. Since the ether is 0, the invisible 5th, it would be undetectable to the ordinary senses of the simulation's avatar. The capstone is the central pixel where accumulation of etheric energy occurs. Along the line extending from the capstone are pixels suitable for command centers, points in space where dimensional shifts become possible, where time can be manipulated, where consciousness can enter matter through a point perpendicular to the plane of the 4 elements. 5 points, 4 below in matter, 1 above in spirit. The same structure that defines the female body also defines the relationship between the material world and whatever lies above it. This is not a coincidence in the simulation's code. It is a design specification. The pentagram is a natural map for the female. Her body fits inside it without remainder. The 5 points find their counterparts in her anatomy without conflict, without compromise, without anything being left over or left out. For the male, the geometry does not resolve so cleanly. The male body does not map onto the pentagram in the same way. The 5 points require a redistribution that the masculine form resists. And here the simulation encodes one of its most demanding teachings. For him, the pentagram points in one of only 2 possible directions, and each direction carries an irreversible consequence. The pentagram pointing upward represents the castrated male on the spiritual path. This is not castration as violence, it is castration as renunciation. the deliberate surrender of the lower drives in order to ascend toward the higher order that the apex represents. This is the path of the priest, the monk, the Hierophant. The five of renunciation. The inverted pentagram, the star with a single point pointing downward, describes the opposite condition, the headless male. In this configuration, the consciousness that belongs redirected entirely into the lower drives. The head has descended into matter. The capstone has become the lowest point rather than the highest. The male without the upward point has lost his command center, not through renunciation but through consumption. He is not ascending through the spirit, he is descending through appetite, and what he is descending into will eventually consume him. The choice between these two configurations is the central demand of the number 5, going up or going down, higher order or deeper matter. The pentagram is always asking, and the male must always answer. The female lives inside the star. The male must choose which way it points. The number 5 in the zodiac is Leo, the fixed fire sign, the lion. The natural leader of the simulation's cast of characters, the one whose very presence causes others to organize around them as planets around a sun. At first, this seems contradictory. The 5 is supposed to be unpredictable, always in motion, elastic, and constantly in need of change. Leo is a fixed sign. How does the most restless number find its home in the most immovable of the fire signs? The answer is in the nature of the ego itself. It is the nature of the ego to be always in the future. That is the drive that keeps it going. 5 is the choice to use the ego to rise to the heavens or to go deep into matter. The Leo ego is fixed in its identity but dynamic in its ambition. It does not change what it is. It changes everything around it. The sun does not move. The planets orbit. Leo is the second fire sign, following Aries. Where Aries is the spark, the first movement, the initiator, the shock of 3 becoming 4, Leo is the blaze at its maximum expression. Not the kindling, not the growing flame, the full solar power of a star at the height of its burning, the August heat that saturates the atmosphere long after the longest day has passed. This is because Leo time operates through reflection as well as direct radiation. It is approximately 2 in the afternoon of the solar year. The sun is lower in the sky, producing glare. The lower light reflects off surfaces and objects, adding its reflected force to the direct rays. Together, they produce more heat than direct radiation alone could achieve. The masculine solar force has recruited the feminine lunar principle, its opposite, as an ally. Direct rays and reflected light combining to produce an intensity neither could generate alone. This is the gift and the danger of Leo. The gift, the ability to recruit everything around the self into an amplification of the self's light, to be so warm and so luminous that others become willing satellites, orbiting the Leo sun and reflecting its light back into the world. The danger, when the fire burns too hot, the earth scorches. When the Leo becomes too consumed by its own light, everything near it either burns or retreats. The universe must respond by providing a form, Saturn, that is impervious to the flame and able to define its limits. The myth of 5, the myth of Leo, is Sampson. Sampson was predestined. Before he was born, he was already assigned his role in the simulation script. He would defeat the enemies of his people, deliver them from oppression, and blaze a trail that no one before him had been capable of blazing. He was given physical power beyond ordinary measure, strength so absolute that no external force could overcome it. He was a solar hero of the first order, the maximum expression of masculine fire in the material world. And he carried this riddle. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? This is the archetypal Leo speaking. They are ruthless to their enemies and very sweet to non-enemies. To a solar god, there can only be one sun per solar system. All others are threats that must be driven out. But if you are not a threat, if you are willing to become a satellite, a planet reflecting their light, then you receive the warmth of that fire in the most intimate places. The same fire that destroys enemies becomes the source of the greatest sweetness for those who orbit safely within its field. Sampson's power came from his hair. This is not an arbitrary detail in the mythology. The hair is the external expression of his life force, the visible sign of the energy that makes him what he is. While his hair remains uncut, the full current of solar power flows through him and nothing can stop him. He is the Leo in complete expression, the blaze at full intensity, the sun at maximum output. Then comes Delilah. The Leo projects Aquarius onto the seventh house cusp, the house of partnership and the mirror. When the Leo seeks a partner, he says unconsciously, "I will be the light and you will be the darkness. I will be the sun and you will be the receptive field that makes my light visible." In order to play with Leo and his light, you must agree to become the darkness. This is how Delilah enters the story. She is not the enemy Leo would destroy. She is the darkness Leo requires to know himself as light. And it is precisely this darkness, this trusted receptivity, this intimate partnership, that becomes the vehicle for the loss of everything Sampson is. Delilah cuts the hair. The current is severed. The solar power drains away. Sampson is captured, blinded, and set to work grinding grain in the prison of his enemies. The solar hero reduced to performing the most repetitive and subservient of all labors, his eyes gone, his strength gone, his freedom gone. This is Sampson after the loss of his hair, castrated, not through surgery, through the severance of his connection to the source of his power. The hair is cut, and Sampson becomes, in every meaningful sense, what Boron 5 was from the beginning, electron deficient. Missing the one thing without which the full masculine expression is impossible. Capable of forming relationships, capable of teaching, capable of contributing, but not capable of being what he was designed to be at full power. The parallel between Sampson's shorn hair and Boron's electron deficiency is exact. Both were designed for greatness. Both carry within them the architecture of what they could have been. Both find a way to function, to teach, to serve, but in both cases something fundamental is missing, and nothing in the material world can fully supply it. Boron looks the fifth element in the periodic table. He is the first son of the chemical family, the eldest child, the one who arrived first and carried the highest expectations. And from the beginning, something was missing. Not missing in a way that was visible from the outside. Like the others, he forms bonds, he participates in the chemistry of the world, he shows up and does his work. But inside, in the deepest structure of what he is, there is a vacancy, a space that should be filled and is not. An opening that he spends his entire chemical existence trying to close. He will always need one more bond than he can generate on his own. He will always be reaching for what the stronger, more complete elements around him possess naturally. This is Boron's own testimony, told in his own voice. I was essentially a castrated male. I was a sensitive male, the one who listens, who shows his sensitive side. I was losing my masculinity and started seeing things in a feminine mode. I crossed the line and started attracting the masculine. I became the one who receives rather than the one who gives. The father's assessment was equally direct. My first son didn't amount to much. He surely wasn't any chip off my block. He was puny. He never seemed to have enough energy. He studied law and later went into the priesthood. He disappointed me. I wanted him to be a leader, a king. He just lacked the will. This is Sampson after the haircut, not as violence but as chemistry. The architecture of greatness is present. The structure is correct. The potential is encoded in every part of what Boron is. But the one thing that would make him whole, that would complete the circuit and allow the full current of solar power to flow through him, was never given. He arrived into the world already electron deficient, already one bond short of satisfaction, already the Leo born without the full voltage of the sign. And yet, and this is the teaching that the deficiency alone could not have produced, Boron gave the Maya something that the stronger, more complete elements never discovered. He invented resonance. By building a bridge between himself and his twin, reaching across the gap that his own incompleteness created, He taught the simulation something about the nature of connection that could only be found by someone who needed connection more than others needed it. The wound became the gift. The vacancy became the opening through which something new could enter. The first son, who was never going to be king, became the priest. Not through defeat, but through discovery. Not the throne, but the temple. Not the blaze, but the one who tends the flame for others and understands its nature more deeply than the one who burns. In the tarot, the fifth card of the major arcana is the Hierophant. He is also known as the High Priest, the Pope, the Shaman, and Chiron, the wounded healer of Greek mythology who could not use his own considerable power to heal the wound he himself carried, and who found in that permanent wound the very source of his wisdom. The Hierophant sits within a formal church environment, wearing 3 elaborate vestments that represent the 3 worlds. His crown has 3 tiers. His right hand is raised in benediction, the same gesture the magician makes, but where the magician was taking raw power from the universe and manifesting it directly on the material plane, the Hierophant channels that same power through society, through institution, through the accumulated wisdom of collective human experience. Before him kneel 2 initiates. His task is to bring them into the church, to give them their appointed roles within a structure larger than any individual. This is the energy of 5 on the upward pointing path. The castrated male who has renounced the full expression of his individual solar power in exchange for access to a different kind of power, the power of transmission, of tradition, of teaching. He has given up the direct solar blaze of the Leo in full expression and taken up the role of the one who channels light rather than generate light. The crossed keys at his feet represent the balance between the conscious and subconscious minds. The historical record of civilization makes the Hierophant's predicament concrete. The pharaoh completely ruled the land, then the power was divided, kings and priests sharing the governance of the world. When king and priest were in balance, the land was in harmony. The priest took the role that Boron described, the intellectual component of the ruling team, the brains of the outfit. The one who was not king material settled for a part by becoming a priest. But the religious institutions that channeled the Hierophant's energy across the centuries made a specific demand of the males who served within them: renounce the lower expression of masculine power, give up the direct sexual and warrior energy of Mars, redirect it upward toward the spiritual. The message was essentially encoded into the institutional structure itself. If you want the pie in the sky, cut off Mars. And here is where the simulation's teaching about 5 becomes its most demanding. The upward-pointing pentagram, the star of spiritual aspiration, the castrated male on the ascending path, carries within it the permanent sacrifice of a part of what the male was designed to be. This sacrifice is real. It is not symbolic. Something is genuinely given up. The question the simulation asks through the Hierophant is not whether the sacrifice is worth it. It is whether the male who makes it does so consciously, with full understanding of what is being exchanged, or whether he does it under compulsion, driven by institutional pressure, by fear, by the controllers who found it useful to channel masculine Martian energy away from direct expression and into collective struggle and religious obedience. A freely chosen renunciation produces wisdom. A compelled renunciation produces the inverted pentagram, the headless male, the consciousness directed downward, the Sampson in the prison grinding grain. The 5 always asks, going up or down? And the answer must come from the inside, not the institution. The number 5 is a prime. It divides only by itself and by 1. This mathematical fact encodes a deeper truth. 5 cannot be split into equal smaller parts. It is either whole or it is nothing. The avatar cannot be half a Leo, cannot be partially on the spiritual path, cannot inhabit the pentagram with one point going up and another going down simultaneously. 5 forces a complete commitment to a direction. This is why 5 is experienced by the simulation's avatar as the most uncomfortable of all the numbers in the sequence so far. 1 was potential, 2 was the law of opposites, 3 was the creative force, 4 was the structure that gave everything a place to land. Each of these could be inhabited without a fundamental choice being demanded. 5 demands the choice, going up or down, the blaze that warms the solar system or the fire that scorches the earth, the Sampson who delivers his people or the Sampson grinding grain in the dark, the Hierophant who freely transmits the light or the castrated priest who serves the institution's need for compliant energy, the inverted pentagram of the headless male sinking into matter or the upward star of the one who has chosen to bring the capstone into alignment with the heavens, the Leo at the height of its power, the August sun at 2 in the afternoon, burning hotter than the noon of June, directing both solar and lunar force simultaneously, is the simulation's image of what 5 looks like when the choice has been made correctly: to warm the world without scorching it, to draw satellites into orbit without consuming them in flames. The universe must provide a form impervious to the flame and able to define its limits. That form is Saturn, and the Leo who learns to work with Saturn's limitation rather than against it, who allows the structure of time and consequence to calibrate the expression of fire into the correct proportion for each stage of the developmental arc, is the Leo who completes the journey from the spark of Aries through the blaze of Leo without burning the world down. The geometry of the female body and the demand of the male soul. We have traveled from the spark of 1 to the structure of 4 to the choice of 5. Now comes 6, the number where the solar hero discovers for the first time that alone is not the end of the story. If you have recognized something in the numbers, in the chemistry, in the myths, then join us for the next episode. Like this video if it gave you something worth keeping. Subscribe so the next number finds you when it arrives. Share it with someone who is asking the questions these videos are trying to answer. The electric soul continues. The number 6 is waiting.